Hey Keith, how's it going, man? Just give it a little bit more time here for everybody to jump in, and then we will go ahead and get started. Couple more minutes, guys. I'll go ahead and get started with everyone that's in here, and then anyone else that is looking for access to this. Obviously, these are all going to be recorded, so I don't want to hold anyone up later than what I already have. I apologize about that. All right, guys, let's go ahead and jump into it. Now, I said we'd be a little bit later, but I was able to get on prior to when I thought I was going to be able to. Had a little bit of technical difficulties that were unforeseen, but at any rate, we are on. We are live. Hopefully, everyone is having a great Sunday. Had a good weekend so far. I know I did. I made a post about it on Twitter this weekend. I think today, sometimes it's good to get away from the markets. Sometimes it can be an unhealthy relationship for some people. And so I always recommend, utilizing time away, but make sure that you're, putting in the necessary time during your days off to be able to execute at a high level. There we go. I just want to make sure that you guys can hear me and that it's not too crazy. I'm just moving my microphone around a little bit. My mic actually picks up pretty well. Okay. So I want to talk about a few things tonight. Probably won't need a full hour to talk about these things, guys, but I want to talk about some setups that are presenting themselves that I've seen that I like, and I want to give you my interpretations on it, my expectations, kind of what I see, what I foresee happening. Specifically with with these names. So first things first, guys, want to talk about GLD, and that's gold. the ETF gold shares, sorry, ticker symbol GLD. I want to talk about how the change basically has kind of how we've kind of seen a rotation out of the banks and into gold. I mentioned this in last week's live. We kind of talked about it, and theoretically speaking, like, why is gold doing what it's doing? Well, it's because there's overall fear in the market. And when people don't know that putting, that cash is safe and that the US dollar is going to hold its value based on what's happening in the banking system, they're running and buying gold and silver. And that's kind of what they've been doing. And we can see that they've been doing that in all of 2023, right? I mean, we can see here, this is the weekly chart, but we can see, really dating all the way back to November, where we kind of bottomed here on the weekly chart, went all the way from 152 all the way up here to this last week. We peaked out at 186.24. And now what this means is that gold is actually approaching an all-time high zone, right? I just added this level here, but you guys can see, right, that we have some resistance here. We have areas that are true resistance, specifically here, we have here, and here and here specifically, right? I'm going to take these off. But what I wanted to point out, though, is that this is an area of resistance. So right, if we go back here and look, 185.85, this is the weekly chart. This is back from 2011, right? 185.85, the weekly high there. This past week, we ended up hitting 186.24. So very, very similar, right? We reacted very similar around these areas, around these levels. It's just something to look at, something to be aware of, because I do think that we're going to get an all-time high breakout on gold, specifically with all of the banks doing what they're doing, right? Gold as a commodity is probably going to be one of my top watches from a bull thesis perspective moving forward, looking for upside. Clear level here on the weekly. We kind of broke out of this level down here, consolidated and popped. I like this level better than this level here. Why is that? Because we bounced here a few times, right? We bounced here, went up to the top of our channel, actually broke out, came back down, bounced again, got a hammer candle, bounced all the way up here, got a shooting star candle on the weekly, and then subsequently, moved all the way down from here. We never even poked over that, plain candle. We talk about candlestick patterns a lot. Blow off top, shooting star candle, dripped all the way back down here. But this level acts as an area for buyers and sellers to react at, right? We see it here. We consolidated here, then we moved up. We touched here twice, then we moved up. Touched here once, then we moved up. Tried to touch again, then we fell through. This is a big area. When we finally got through this, we pushed all the way back up, and now we're back here at the top of this band. So once we get over this band on the weekly, I think we will see a move on gold, GLD, back up here to this, 194, possibly even 200 level. I know people probably think that we need to sell from this level, but gold has really underperformed the markets, and a lot of central banks have been buying gold and silver themselves. So this is what I'm looking at for potential long side play here, GLD to the upside. I think if we break this 188 level, really 186, I'd say 186, 188 in here on the weekly time frame, I think we're going to get 200. I think we'll get an all-time high on GLD, and then we'll get to 200. But this is a name that I really like. Now, part two of this, leading into like what the second part of this is going to be, we talk about strength in gold, which is going to mean weakness in a name like XLF. And when we look at a name like XLF, guys, we haven't seen weekly structure candles like this since the COVID, the COVID crash on XLF, right? Like, let's look here at XLF and see what this looks like specifically from a level perspective, how we've kind of traded, at this level. This is a big area, right? This is an area that, we do have some confluence here. It's an area that for sure buyers and sellers have reacted to at this level. We didn't quite make it to that level before the COVID news kind of hit in February of 2020. You guys remember that? February, March, that's kind of when all that was going on. But What I'll say though is that, like, if you look at the relative volume, look at the last time we had weekly volume at this level. It was during COVID, right? We haven't seen weekly volume like we've seen in XLF, like we saw. We haven't seen this since the COVID crash 3 years ago, right? And it was about around this time, right? February, March, around this time is when we saw this exact same move. So XLF is it's going to be a big ETF watch for me this week for downside play, because I do think that once we break this level, this 30, it's interesting, $29.99, but once we break the $30 level on XLF, yeah, I mean, it could get pretty ugly on XLF. Typically not a big mover, not a name that likes to move, super big on a weekly time frame, but this is a name that every time around $32, $33 a share, sellers have just kind of stepped in on this name for the last 2 weeks, right? Here we rejected. If we zoom in here, we can see it, right? Got a rejection here, got a rejection here on this weekly. Just buyers are not in control here. I would say sellers are in control. This weekly candle is a little bit of a doji here, so we need to see what happens. Last time we had a doji near these levels, we did push back up. But I want to see if this $30 level can be tested. Really though, if we break down through this level, the one area that I really am looking at XLF to potentially come down to, right, is going to be this level right about here. Right in here. And why is this level important to me? Well, I think that if we break 30, we're going to see about 28 on XLF, because this is where we started to gap down that next week on XLF, right, when COVID kind of hit. This is where we held. If you look here at the $28 level, $27.92, we got a hammer candle. We held over it, held it, pushed up. Then we gapped down. We tried to reclaim it. We couldn't, and they just slammed us down that entire week. Same thing when we rebound from COVID, in 2021, January of 2021, we got over, then we held it, we pushed up, we came down, we held it, and then we went. So this is, again, an area, just like I said on GLD, this is an area, this $27.92, that buyers and sellers like to react at. So in the event that we do lose $29.99 or $30 on XLF, I'd be looking for a move down to the $27.92 area on XLF. Okay, so that's going to be important to me, a big level for me that I'm going to be watching. That's kind of I think if selling continues through 29, I'm looking for 28. That's going to be huge, guys. Though, to be completely honest, if that happens, there's probably big things happening with the market, big things happening with financial institutions in terms of liquidity risk, solvency risk, things like that. Probably the only way that we get that break down there. But the second scenario here is that we do get a bounce at 30 because we are so oversold. I don't really look at RSI, but we can see where the volume's at. And this is an area that we like to bounce from, right? We bounced here once, twice. This could be the third time, right? And last time we bounced all the way back up to 35. First time we bounced up to 35. Last time we bounced here, which was October 14th, 2022, that week, bounced all the way up and hit a high of 36.91. So if we bounce here again, this could be a potential, right, for us to take. This is a swing trade setup because we're on the weekly time frame now. This is a potential weekly swing setup that every time the weekly candles have came down here, when we've held this level, we've pushed up, right? 35, 36, 37, somewhere in there. But this is where we could see a bounce on these names because we've seen so much selling from a volume perspective. I mean, volume is just crazy here. If you look down here, it's, I don't know if I have volume on. I could probably turn it on. Let me add volume just so you guys can see. Yeah, there we go. Here we have some volume. Although I don't like that they add that, the VMA. That's okay though. Anyway. The volume, you guys can see how this volume is. I'm going to take that off because it's actually distracting me. I don't like it. But that's a name that I'm watching to the downside guide. XLF, if we break this level, that's going to be huge, which leads me to my next name, the individual name, Charles Schwab, right? We've been talking about this name for a while. We've been talking about the weekly. Clear channel on the weekly that we're setting up, guys. And potentially, what we could be setting up here on the weekly, we need to see if this is going to play out. One thing I'm watching here, actually, let me do a rectangle for you guys. Let me show you what I'm looking at. What I'm looking at is potential for this to start setting up, right? Now we potentially if this plays out, we potentially have, let's do orange, yeah. Potentially have a flag set up here, right? We have a bear flag set up. All right, here's a pole. We can make this bigger, yeah. There's our pole, right? Down, flag pole, bear flag, right? Consolidate here and then drop. That's what I'm kind of watching for Charles Schwab here. What I'm looking to see if we could potentially, get into here on Schwab. It's an interesting setup, but again, you guys can see on the weekly how strong this level is, and this is where, like I tell you guys every single week, this is where swing traders make their money, right? They have clear defined weekly levels. So if we look at this level, this 58.79, now I talked about this in the last Sunday scan. I talked about it all week long. I talked about these weekly levels, how I find them, but I'm going to give you one more time how I found this level, right? We get a rejection here. We pop over. Now, this isn't where I really find this level. It's really right here, right? I find this level because on the weekly candle of March 10th that week, this is the area that we held. Well, when you look left on the chart, you can see that we've held this area a couple times, right? We closed this weekly candle at 58.70. The low of June 17th's week is 58.82, so 12 pennies off, right? So it's imperative to have weekly levels that you guys know, because this is a level that was respected, and then from 58.79 bounced all the way up to 85, right? And again, this is where swing traders make their money. This is how they do it. Okay? They use these weekly levels. So for me, I know that we are now range bound on the weekly on SCHW, right? 49.60 to 58.79. In the event that we can break out over 58.79, I would look for a breakout, a retest, and then go, right? I'm looking for a move here. I'm looking for us to basically take this from here all the way up here, right? If we can hold. That's what I'd be looking for. But it's very clear, right? Very clear setup here that we had lower lows here, right? Then we had higher highs, right? Then we had higher highs, higher lows, higher low. Then we had, we'll say here, higher high, higher low, and then we break, right? But that's basically a stair step. We put in the low, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, break it, and we fall, right? Stair steps up, elevator down. That's what you hear in the markets all the time. Those are the patterns that we look for. So this is a weekly chart. I'm not saying that you use a weekly chart basically to look at stair steps up, elevators down, higher high, higher low type of thing. But we can use those same patterns on a 5-minute chart. And I just wanted to point that out to you guys, that this is a name that I'll be watching to see if we can break down through this. Now, the other name that I'm going to be watching, individual name specifically, is going to be Bitcoin, right? We talked about Bitcoin last week. Sorry if I can type this in, right? Bitcoin and all the miners, right? Something I'm going to be watching. Now, let's go to the daily on Bitcoin. Let's see what we've been doing. We're consolidating. More specifically, we're flagging hard here, right? This is a clear flag pattern, right? That once we break out of this on Bitcoin, again, you guys see how big the 28,563 is, because on the daily time frame, we haven't had a daily close over that level. But when we do, and I do believe that it will happen, Bitcoin is going to be massive, and I fully believe that Bitcoin will get back over and we'll go back up and tag that 32K level. These are things that I really wish I knew when I was trading in the beginning, because I didn't know consolidation patterns. I didn't know supply and demand. I just didn't know these things, right? But this is the flag pattern that I'm watching here on Bitcoin, okay? Because you guys can see it's a clear flag pattern. We are clearly flagging. We have a clear uptrend, right? Here's our flagpole. And again, we can make this thick so you guys can see it. Here's our flagpole. Here's our consolidation. We're looking for a move up. Why are we looking for a move up from here? Well, because this is the area, right? This is the consolidation area that we were in right here, right? All the way from May 10th, 2022 until June 11th, 2022. So basically a month, right? We hung out in this 28.5 to 32K range, Okay, so that's why I'm ultimately looking for a breakout over this level to get back to that 32K range, because typically when we're in this range here, right, when we're trading up here, we typically have volatility up to that level of 31.9, right? And that's exactly what I'm looking for here. Okay, so that is Bitcoin, guys. That's what I'm looking at on Bitcoin. Now, if we do reject, keep in mind that 25 is going to be our level down if we reject. But what I'd say is that there are bullish signs on Bitcoin, guys. It's up 70% year to date. It's don't step in front of a moving train, right? It's up 70% right now. We do have the 28.5K resistance, but that 31.9, 32K is the next spot on Bitcoin. I think once we get over this 28.5 and get a daily candle close over this level, I don't know if we'll get a daily retest of the 28.5. If we don't, it's going to be a straight march up to 32K on this. But that's where I would expect the sellers would start to step in at, not here. I would expect that they're going to step in at that 32K range. And why? Why is that, right? Well, that's because if you look back down here, that's going to put these dip buyers up 100%. And we talked about this actually in Q4 on a name like Netflix. I know I'm jumping around, but let me show you Netflix real quickly, because I'll show you the same psychology here. I think that could be going on, right? On the daily chart, we talked about those dip buyers, right? Back in May of 2022, that bought Netflix at $162 a share. That I thought that they were going to start selling at 300 to 305. Well, what happened? Let me show you. As soon as we got back up here, right, 162, soon as we got to back here in this is Q4, October, right? When we got back to that 300, 305 level, what happened? 305 all the way back down to 253. Why did this happen, right? Why did we hit 305 and why did we fall? More likely than not, what I'd be willing to bet my money on, right, is the fact that dip buyers that bought Netflix here sold here, right? I'm buying at 162 and I'm selling at 305 and I'm out for nearly 100% on my trade that I took, right? I bought it in May. I sold it in October, right? So I'm in it June, July, August, September, October. I'm in it for 5 months and I just, I 2x my money, right? I'm out. That is what I see those buyers and sellers doing. And so pivoting back into a name like Bitcoin, thinking like investors, thinking like traders, on the daily, look at this. Same thing here, right? Basically using this 15.7K area, right? People that bought in November, they're probably going to start selling here in March, because that's November, December, January, February, March. Right? 5 months. Just like the Netflix hold period was 5 months for those investors. 5 months, they 2x their money. People who bought Bitcoin here, 5 months, right? Buy in November, sell in March at 30K, and I just 2x my money on Bitcoin. They doubled their money, right? Where else can you double your money like that in 5 months? Especially safer investments, not playing, a zero DT option, doubling your money. That is what I'm looking for here on Bitcoin. It's held up incredibly strong in the rate environment that we're in. And I think that says something. That says that people do trust Bitcoin, or that they are at least coming to Bitcoin. Now, I did think that we would see Bitcoin in the single digits, and I was hoping that we would see that. And I still think we do get that at some point. I don't think Bitcoin just automatically goes to 30K and then it shoots to 100K. I don't think that happens. But 25K is a line in the sand for me. If we break down through 25K, that's where you could look to get short on some Bitcoin names for some leaps or weeklies or whatever. But that's a big level here, 25K to the downside, as you guys can see. Why is it? Because you see what happens when we consolidated here, we rejected, but when we came back up again, we came back strong. We consolidated once, and then boom, we got a daily close. We came back, retested on the daily, 25K, and then that day, Bitcoin was up almost 10%, right? Bitcoin was up $2,400 on the day. One coin was up $2,400 on that day right there. So that's just a perfect example of holding what was prior resistance, heavy resistance, holding as support and rocketing off of that. Okay. So Bitcoin is a name that I'm watching. It's huge. That's what I want to see happen. And ultimately, like I said, we're looking for this shoot up here to this 32K. So looking for a potential, 15% upside play on Bitcoin from these levels here, 10, 15, 20% from these levels is what I'd be looking at. Now, in the event that Bitcoin does start moving, let's go back to this name that we continue to talk about, which is Coin. Now, I know this chart looks pretty ugly. We got a lot of lines on here. Let me just turn them off and let's just look at a naked chart to see what we got. What are we working with here on the daily chart? We're working with something that looks pretty ugly, right? We don't really have a clear sense of direction. Just what this tells me that there is a ton of volatility on this chart. We see massive moves up with big candles. We see big wicks down. We see gaps on the chart. This is just massive volatility here. What we have here is that Coin had the Wells notice. We had the gap down, but now we're starting to consolidate here, right? And we're right back at these levels on Coin that we played at before. It's no secret, again, that buyers and sellers are treating this name the exact same way as what they did before when we traded at these levels. So when we turn these back on, for me personally, going back down here into smaller time frames, it's pretty clear, right? Like what we're looking for. I mean, you could even see how that 66.22 level was respected on Friday. Once we got over it, we came back down, held it. So assuming that the markets stay relatively flat from Friday's close, next level up on Bitcoin I'm looking for is that 70.83. I don't want to spend too much time going over this individual name because we have played this so many times before. And I feel like you guys know these levels a lot. So this will probably be a name for us to watch in pre-market huddle tomorrow. I'm going to have it on watch, but I think the bigger name and the bigger setup that I really like that I've been talking about for a couple weeks now is Mara. Now, it doesn't look too good right now, right, comparatively speaking to where we were at, because we were hovering up here around this level. But as we get back into this name, this is a name that I think, we are potentially consolidating here, right? We're starting to get a little bit of consolidation right in this level. This is a name that I think, I really do think that once we break over this $9.18 mark, we're going to go back up and grab 13, possibly 14.80 on Mara. Now, what's going to have to happen with this is that Bitcoin's going to have to get over that 28.5. So this is the upside case on Bitcoin getting up over 28.5 that we could potentially swing Mara calls. And I think this could be, a nice 200 to 500% play for us once we get over this 918 level. I don't see a lot of people talking about this online yet, on Twitter, on things like that. But this is a clear level, guys, because as you can see, right, last time we were at these levels, we pushed up, and when we broke over 918, we went all the way up to 1318 very, very quickly. Then we came down, then we pushed up, right, and we went all the way up to, as high as 1888 back in August of 2022. Okay, when we rejected that 14, we came all the way back down to 1918. We rejected this, came down here to the next level, then came down to 1918. Same thing, guys. Same thing here. When we rejected this 1480 level in October of 2022, came crashing all the way down, and then you guys can see what happened here: $3.11, and then we push up here on Mara. So yeah, I'm looking at Mara. I think this is the potential for a great trade, a great swing trade. This is what I'm going to be looking at. This is a name that I'll be watching. Another name that you could look to play is a name like Riot, right? We played this one before, but this is a name that you could potentially look to play. Riot, more relative strength than a name like Mara. I just think that Mara setup is a beautiful setup to be playing, as long as it works out for us. But looking at the Riot chart, guys, we can see, like, on the weekly time frame, we are starting to make some moves here. We're starting to make some noise on Riot on the weekly. So this is a interesting setup. Nothing that I really see here as far as like technical pattern setup that we could be playing. But it's a name that I really do like, and a name that I'm going to be watching in addition to Coin and in addition to Mara. It's a name that I'll be watching. Now let's go over and check out the chips, because these are names that I always like to look at. What a beautiful daily setup, though, that we had on AMD. Just absolute banger trade, going from 79 all the way to 102, guys. 79 on March 13th, 102 March 23rd, so 10 days later. Really only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 trading days later, guys. All the way up to 102.43. So massive move there. And again, going back to swing trading, this is where it's, swing trading becomes imperative. But if markets start to fall, AMD and Nvidia are going to be big downside names that I'm watching. And the reason for that is because if you look at where this resistance has been at, right, let's just put this level here, this supply zone, right? I'm not concerned about what happened up here because more specifically, like AMD has been in a pretty big downtrend, right? So we could say, like, I can make these and I can say, yeah, AMD had this big downtrend, however we want to say it, but it you know, broke out of that downtrend. So specifically what I'm looking at is last time we traded at these levels on AMD, what happened? Well, we couldn't get up over this level and we couldn't get up to that 110 area. So when that happened, we fell all the way back down to 54, right? Basically, we lost 50% of share price from August of 2022 all the way to October of 2022, right? So Q3 was definitely not a good quarter for AMD in terms of the stock price. That's you know, AMD, this is a huge level I'm watching for supply zone on the daily chart. Now, we can day trade this on the 5-minute chart, but I'm just speaking specifically larger time frames now. This is a name that's got a lot of downside, you know, from this level here. We're trading basically, again, right, October, March, they've 2x their money. We saw what happened when they did this with Netflix in 5 months. We'll see if they do the same thing with Bitcoin. We're going to see if they do the same thing here with AMD. Seemingly this, you know, 5 months, 2x your money type deal. It's not a bad thing if you ask me, especially when you're throwing it in commons, when you're throwing it in equities, and when you're able to throw in, you know, hundreds, millions, you know, types of dollars to be able to, you know, double your money in 5 months. Specifically speaking, you know, you think about real estate and how quickly you can double your money on a house flip. Sometimes you don't even double your money. So being able to double your money in 5 months is huge, and that's why you see a lot of these sellers step in at that 5 month mark when they have doubled their money. And so this is another opportunity here that, hey, bought at 54. If I can sell it around this 104, you know, 108 level, I'm going to be looking to, you know, to sell. So let's look at, someone asked, Francisco asked if I have thoughts on Google. The hourly looks good. Let's take a look at that because I want to look at some names that you guys are looking at. You know, this is a great setup here. We talked about this actually on the Sunday scan a lot, a couple weeks ago. You guys see this trend line. Last time we looked at Google, I haven't touched this Google chart, by the way, since the last time we were here. We had this uptrend, right? We had this trend we were playing: 1 bounce, 2 bounce, 3 bounce, 4 bounce. Oh, by the way, we have a falling wedge on Google, right? Let's see what happens after this. Well, swing trade, right? Falling wedge here. This is, what date is this? February 24th, right? We are at a low of 88.86. A month later, March 22nd, we have a high of 107.51. So this is, you know, this is kind of where, again, swing trading, this is, you know, I might need to start actually, I might start going a different direction with my trading too, and actually start doing a separate swing trading account, right? Specifically just for swing trading. Just swing trading options, separate from day trading, because day trading, you know, we're trading 15-minute candles. It's, you know, we can look at falling wedge setups on the 15, on the 5, things like that, but there's a couple setups that we have absolutely nailed from a swing trading perspective that have just paid absolutely fat. I mean, some of them that come to mind are Google. This is a good one. Coin was another one. AMD was another one. Just a lot of nice, clean daily setups. But let's look at the hourly chart because Francisco asked about the hourly chart. So let's take a look. Just seeing what we have here from an hourly perspective. Yeah, so if it were me, I'd probably go ahead and put a level here on Google, right? Like, let's put a level right here. What level is that? 106.60, right? Now I don't know how this level corresponds to anything, but let's scroll back and look. Well, we can already see here that on the 4 hour, it does correspond well, right? Break over this, hold it, push up, fall all the way through it, reject it, break up, you know, reject. So let's zoom in a little bit and let's go back and see how that level played out. Yeah, so you can see break over, hold, push up, fall down, break out over, tweezer top, push down, break up, all the way up, and then we gapped down the next day and pushed all the way down. But yeah, 106.60 is a big level on Google. But hopefully you guys can see right there, just that's proof that like how the buyers and sellers reacted the last 3 days at 106.60 is indicative of how they reacted in the past, specifically as recently, right, as beginning of February of 2022. So just over, a month and 3 weeks ago, basically, is how they reacted. How they reacted then, they reacted very similarly over the last 3 days on Google. So, that's a name that I'll be looking at. Just what I would say though is that we had a lot of consolidation on Friday, not a lot of moves on Google. This could be an area where it could be getting top heavy on Google, right? Because this is a major push up. If we can get over this level, specifically I'd say this level here, 109, I would expect us to move back up, but this is an area that I would maybe call supply, right? Like this is a supply zone. Why is it a supply zone for me personally as a trader? Because every time we've came back here 3 times, right? First time we were here, we gapped down into this area and we fell all the way down from that 108 all the way down to 96, okay? And then ultimately all the way down to 83. Now in February, we came back up to the same level and we fell all the way back down here to 89, right? So now we're here again in March. Are we going to fall back down and just continue this trend line that we have? Does this trend line just stay intact? And do we fall back down to say, 90, 93, 94 now? That's something that I would be watching. But good, good looking chart so far on Google, especially if we can break out over this, skies look good. Looks like we have the potential, if we go to the weekly here, to make a true move back to, let's say, probably realistically, looking at the 116 area. I'll go ahead and mark this level right about in there. That's what I'd be looking for us to move back to in the event that we, break out over that supply zone. So good question, Francisco. I like the Google chart. If you guys have any other charts, drop them and we'll take a look at it. Mike, I'm glad you liked the discussion on crypto. Appreciate that. Oops, too close. What else we got? How's the short term looking on GME? Let's take a look at GME. I don't trade GME, or I don't invest in GME, I should say. German pound cake, like the name too. But I don't invest in GME. I am a trader of GME. If we can get over 29 on the weekly chart, I think GME does make a run back up to the 40s. So yeah, great weekly candle here, but keep in mind they had a great weekly candle because it was the first time in 2 years that they had a profitable quarter. They were profitable in Q4 for the first time in 2 years. So big news on GME. I don't know though, like if that's going to be a name that runs, if the apes grab it or not. But you guys can see here, right, that like if we get over this level, why I'm looking for a move up here, because you see what happens. We got volume last time over that level, massive volume back in 2022, March 25th and April 1st, those 2 weeks, we got to move up. Now, what I'll say is that April, historically, the seasonality index on April is that April is a really good month for the market. So if the markets do push, GME specifically, this could be a great trade back up to 41.56. But again, I'm not an investor in GME. I just trade it when we have volatility. So I'll just continue to do that. Daniel asked if I could look at QQQ. Absolutely. Let's look at the weekly. First thing I notice on the weekly QQQ is that we're kind of putting in some support here, right? Right here at this level, same level that we actually put in support. Back here, there's like a supply zone. You guys can see it. Let me color this. I know I've got a lot of charts right now, but you guys can see the supply zone, right? Supply zone, support level, whatever you want to call it. But back in September of 2020 and November of 2020, we bounced in the supply zone. In the supply zone September, outside on top of the supply zone in November, and we pushed all the way up to 404, right? 267 to 404. We did the same thing here in October, bounced out of this zone, pushed all the way up to 294, 300 area, bounced again at the end of the year and beginning of the year. QQQ's been on fire. So if we can get a weekly candle close over this, I'd say 315 level, I think we could see 330 on QQQ for sure. But again, just like I said before, we are hitting this potential resistance area up here. Like this is a supply zone that we could potentially be hitting. The one thing, again, going back to swing trading on a name like QQQ, let me take off the extended and show you guys this. Simply having levels and seeing chart patterns set up, this is a perfect example of consolidation, right, on the 30-minute. Now let's take a look at this, because this is one that, like, when this sets up again, we could play the same exact trade and take the, very similar trade here. But 30-minute candles, this is back in March, beginning of March of 2022. Okay. Sorry, 2023. This is 2023. March 6th, 2023. You can see that we started to put in here. We tagged the top of this, came down, hit our level 294, came back up, hit this area. So then we saw that there is a trend happening here. Okay, comes down, bounces here around a little bit, and we start to trend up from here. We have one outlier candle on the 13th of March, and I think that was CPI driven. I'd have to go back and look, but it was economic data driven on that. So that's what I like to call an outlier candle. But you can see here, right, this is a wedge that is consolidating. And what happens, what do you guys hear me say all the time when we start to consolidate on a wedge? The move is that much more explosive, right? You see big range, big range, big range, up, down, 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 start to, trend up, bounce, bounce. Now we're tightening, right? You see how we're big moves here, up and down on 30 minutes. We're down, we're up, we're down, we're up, we're down, we're up, we're down, up, down, down. Like now we're consolidating very tightly here. And what happens when we break out of this? One more tap here, boom. When we get out of this, it's just, right? We just go straight to 306. Okay. Shout out to Pitbull 305, right to 305. But as soon as we break out of this, 295 to 305 very, very quickly, massive trade, right? March 15th at 1:30, the low of this candle, 293. March 17th, the high, 308. Okay. Massive, massive moves. $14 move in 2 days on QQQ. So yeah, Nvidia though, what I'd be looking for is that 315. When we get 315, to answer your question, Daniel, if we get 315, I think we get 330 on QQQ. And like I said, April is historically a pretty good month for the markets in terms of bullish or bearish sentiment. The markets perform relatively well in April. And then, in May, everyone is pretty much sell and then go away, right? That's what happens. Everyone goes to the Hamptons for vacation on Wall Street. It's like summer months start to dry up a little bit. So everyone, markets rally in April, they sell off in May, and then everyone goes on summer vacation. So historically speaking, that's what happens. Now, I'm not going to share with the bias, but I just wanted to throw that out there. No worries, German Pound Cake. I'm glad it worked. The analysis was good for you. Thoughts on BABA? I have not gone over BABA, but I know it was strong last week, so we should see a big, a nice strong weekly candle here, which is definitely what we see. On the weekly time frame, if we look at BABA, we're right back at this level, which is what I'll call $87 level. If we can poke over this, then I think we make a push back up to 114 on BABA. Lots going to depend on a lot of different things because China names are always they're tough to trade. Look at this chart. I mean, you just see all the gaps in it. It's hard to trade overnight specifically, but if you can catch it on a day when there's momentum, you can make a good chunk of money trading a name like BABA. But just the daily chart. I mean, just look how gross the chart looks, right? I mean, there's just gap up, gap down, gap up. Gap up, gap down, gap down, gap up. It's just it's ridiculous as far as like the terms of gap ups and gap downs. I mean, if you get it right, you smash it. That's great. But this is an area that if we can hold this consolidation area here, again, I'm going to go back to the supply and demand zones here, right? We push back up into what I would call supply, former demand, now supply, and we're inside this zone. So if we can get up over this zone, aka get up over that $87 level, we could probably push up to the $91 level next. So that's what I'd be looking at on BABA specifically. But hopefully you guys see why it's very hard to trade BABA overnight, because you could get absolutely railed. You know, there's a period here where gap up, 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 gap up. You know, and if you were trying to you know, play a reversal on that and swing stuff overnight, you were just going to get absolutely railed on BABA. So just be careful taking BABA overnight. Winston, we haven't looked at Nvidia yet, but very similar to AMD. Just been straight vertical. It's a name that I really thought was going to pull the Tesla look that we had, right? Where we basically had Tesla. We had Tesla consolidating. I thought we were going to do the same thing here on Nvidia, where we were going to consolidate in this level. Distribution channel, basically. Push up, distribution, drop down. But we broke out to the upside, and we're we're at a big spot on Nvidia. So let's get rid of this. Let me show you guys what this looks like on the weekly. Here's the weekly on Nvidia. Okay, let's take off the drawings. So Nvidia has been very, very, very strong. But we are right here at this level, 277. Okay, why do I say here? Because if you look at these two on the weekly time frame, we got a tweezer top on the weekly right here, right? See, tweezer top right here. Hopefully you guys see this, right? So from 277 on the weekly time frame, we dropped all the way down, right? First, we dropped all the way down without a buyer in sight until about, I'd say about right here, right? 277 to 174. So $100 a share if you shorted, right? $100 a share. Massive move on the weekly from this level. Okay, so I know that this is going to be an area that, again, buyers want to take us to. And then it's going to be up to them to determine if buyers are going to be strong enough to break us out over 277, 280. Because if they do break us out over 280, guess where I think we're going on Nvidia next? Obviously 300, right? 300 psych. Then I'm going to be looking for the potential move up to about 335 on Nvidia. So that's what I'd be looking at on Nvidia. 300 before falling. I'm not sure, Winston, you know, just because of the daily here. Just keep this on watch, right, on the weekly time frame. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and put a marker here. I'm going to create a new alert at price above 277.39. Okay, so I'm going to save it. That way I know that when we break over 277.39, it's going to trigger me, right? I'm going to know, hey, we're breaking out over a weekly level. We have the potential now to make a very quick move to 300 on a name like Nvidia. Okay, if we can get a weekly candle close over 277.39, like I said, or 278, whatever you want to call that level. Okay, so that's what I'm looking at on Nvidia. Amazon, let's take a look at Amazon. Why not? Let's look at the daily. Five days of an inside bar. We haven't had 5 days of an inside bar yet. I don't think so. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, because we closed up over the 5th day there. What I would say is that Amazon is trading in channel. Right, and we're trading. Oh, here, that's perfect. There's my levels. We don't even need that, right? You guys can see that we're trading within this level here, right? So what I would look for on the daily, since we're trapped in this level, is simply a breakout out of this channel. Right, and when that happens, whether it's 97.31 or 101.28, we know what levels we're going to take Amazon to. Okay. If we break out within this level here, 101.28, we can get to 105.05, right? Next level. If we can break under 97.31, yeah, I see that here on the 16th, sorry. Henry, I do see that. Yeah, we've been within that range basically on the daily. that whole candle. So I do see that basically price has kind of been within this, but it's within our level, right? Basically, I'd say every single daily candle has closed within the key levels that I've identified on Amazon that I like to play off of. And you guys can see what happens when we lose 97. We made our way all the way down to 88.12, right? So basically a $10 move down. Now, what happened last time we broke out up over 101.28? Well, we broke out and then we gapped down, okay, and then we pushed up. But the moral of the point here is that when we broke out over this, we made our way up to 105. Then we gapped up and went all the way, to 114. Then we rejected, so on and so forth. But that's where I would say I would wait, right? Or I'm buying calls here and I'm buying puts here if I'm a supply and demand trader. But I like this Amazon setup actually, Henry. So I appreciate you showing me this. I'll probably have this as a top focus watch for me going into the week to see if we can get a potential move off of this level. I like that. I like that setup a lot. Appreciate that. The looks on that, Henry. Yeah, guys. So that's about all I got for you. We could take one more look at a name, Tesla, just to chart it out, see where it's at. God, I got a lot of lines on here on Tesla. Yeah, I mean, we're starting to make. We're starting to put in a bearish trend on the daily, okay? Now, we pushed all the way up off 101, then we consolidated, then we dropped. We pushed up, right? But what happened here? You guys know we put in a higher high, right? Or a higher low, I should say. Here was a low, lower high, lower low, higher high. Then what happened? Lower low, okay? Because now we're starting to lower high up here, right? So this is Tesla's a name that we're potentially fighting this level here, this basically 200 area, 200 psych level again, because you can see here we rejected, we're pushing down. If we do push down, I would expect us to move down relatively quickly back down into that 180 range on Tesla, and then underneath 180, looking for a potential move back down into the 167 range, right? But you can see here, clear as day, right? We bounced here on March 13th at this level. I'm putting my line right below where this candle is right here, right? 167.53. We bounced and we moved all the way back up to 200. Again, swing traders make a ton of money playing these levels. Well, what happened here? This was November 2022, right? Keeping my cursor at the same level, we can see here, we came down, we held that, 167.30 level, and we pushed all the way up to 198. Okay, 200 again, basically. We pushed the exact same level, okay? It's no coincidence that buyers back then did the same thing. We have, after the bounce, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days, and we get to 200, okay? Here we go on this one. Ready? We're here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days, and we're back to 197. Basically the same exact price, okay? If I turn these levels on, it's going to make it crazy. But you guys can see, let me point these out. Let's make these yellow. And we'll make it thicker. Yellow. Yellow. Okay. You guys see, it's not a coincidence. Bounce 6 days later, we're basically up here at 197. Bounce 6 days later, we're back up at 197. Okay, hopefully everyone can see that. But moral of the story here, guys, is that buyers and sellers are going to react the same way that they have done in the past. So what do I think is going to happen when we break down through 167.69? Well, we came all the way down, and 1, 2, 3, 4 days later, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days later, we're down here at 145. Okay, now there was a lot of selling happening on Tesla here, but that's going to be a watch for me, guys. As we come back down, 167.69 will be a key watch for me, because I think if we break this level on Tesla here, you guys can see we have all this room down to play with down here, back down to the 100 psych level. So that's going to do it for me tonight, guys. Hopefully everyone that tuned in got something out of this. We talked at the open, we talked about gold. right? We talked about the fact that XLF, the financial sector ETF, has been in a straight downward spiral. And we haven't seen the levels of selling on XLF that we've seen recently since the COVID drop in 2020. We talked about levels to the downside on XLF. We talked about names like Charles Schwab. We talked about Bitcoin. We talked about the Bitcoin miner names. We looked at AMD. We looked at Nvidia. We looked at SPY. We also looked at QQQ. Hopefully you guys are seeing how important key levels are in your trading every single day. Having key levels can give you just a little bit of boost of confidence, guys, that will help you take that trade that you're scared of taking, right? Because everyone is scared of taking, myself included. I shouldn't say I'm scared, but when I was new, I was like, man, you want me to buy calls, or you want me to go long on a name that's just like falling down like this? Why should I do that? Well, that's where I say it's nice to have court vision and zoom out, guys. So on Tesla, when you zoom out, November 2022 to basically in that month, right? November 2022 to November 22nd, we're down. We bounce at that 167 level. What happens again? March, right? Down. We bounce at that 167 level and we go. Okay. And this is where, like I said, this is where swing traders make the bulk of their money at. They look at larger time frames, and this is how they do it. They're able to do things like this. Now, if we look at the weekly time frame, it's a little bit, we can see it on the weekly too. We see this bounce spot. Okay. Bounce, push. Bounce, push. Okay. So, yeah, guys, that's what I got for you this evening. But I'm hoping, like I said, hopefully everyone got a little something out of this. I always want to make sure that you guys are getting, something out of these things. So I'm glad that everyone was here. Glad everyone tuned in. If you guys have any questions, drop them for me in the comments. Please make sure that you guys have liked and subscribed to the YouTube channel, as we'll be pushing out more things. I'm going to be getting a few strategy videos out here on the YouTube channel for you guys. All my stuff is actually going to be coming in. I think it comes in tomorrow. I got to check. But my whole studio setup, everything will be in. So I'll be pumping out content like a machine for you guys. So yeah, that's all I got for you guys. But like I said, any questions, drop it in the comments. Or you can tag me in the Discord on the channels, and I will get back to you as soon as I see it. So let's get after it tomorrow. Let's have a great day. Tomorrow, let's have a great week. Let's finish up Q1 strong. And if you guys have been struggling in Q1, let's figure out how to fix it. Let's not continue to do things that we're not successful at in Q1 into Q2. Let's change that, and let's have a very, very good Q2 leading into the summer months. And let's get after it, guys. I will see you guys tomorrow in Pre-Market Huddle with a watch list and with some key levels for you guys. Have a good evening.